It's the All Things Strange podcast. I am your host, Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can find all of our wonderful links in the description on the Linktree, where you can find our Patreon, our Discord, our merchandise, and more. This week's episode, Strange Deaths. Before we get started, we've got two wonderful tiers of patronage for you. The first tier will get you early access, after hours, and bonus episodes. The next tier will get you the ability to vote on upcoming topics such as this one, and it's quite a bargain, coming in at $3 and $5 respectively. This week it was between strange deaths and hypnosis, not psychic, hypnosis murders. And it was dead even. I was going to do both. I was going to do a little bit of both, but then I got kind of stuck on strange deaths. So I decided to do strange deaths for the main episode, and I will do hypnosis murders for the bonus episode this week. That is, by the way, hypnosis murders, that's murders involving hypnosis, whether it's hypnotizing somebody to murder somebody or hypnotizing somebody and murder them, whichever. Well, let's get to it. There are so many strange deaths. I can only cover a small number of them on this episode, but there are so many, I might revisit this general topic sometime in the future. All right, so just a fair warning. Some of these deaths are pretty gruesome. You have been warned. This is the Halloween season. If you're easily grossed out by gruesome details, you may want to skip this one. No, don't skip. Listen to the show. Don't turn it off. But also, these are somewhat recent. Most of these deaths are recent, and my thoughts go out to the friends and families of the deceased. These are all tragic and unfortunate, and I feel that, whatever the cause, they didn't need to happen, so that kind of makes them sad. But on the other hand, they're also strange and mysterious deaths, which is why we're talking about them, so let's get to it. The first one I want to start off with is Anne Heche. She's been out of the spotlight for a little while, so some of you may not be familiar with her, especially if you're a little on the younger side. She was a pretty famous actress. I don't know. I didn't get the memo. When did it become bad to be female? I don't know. It's so weird. Anyways, I think we call them all actors now, which seems strange to me. She was an actor who had a pretty successful career. She was in some pretty big hits, such as I Know What You Did Last Summer, Volcano, Donnie Brasco, Wag the Dog, the Psycho remake, The Other Guys, and many, many other movies and TV shows. She even did a couple of audiobooks, not that many, I think like 2 or 3. But my favorite, the only one I've actually heard, is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. It's a really good story. It's not that horrific. It's more of like suspenseful. It's a simple premise. It's about a girl that gets lost in the woods, and her favorite baseball player is Tom Gordon. So it's a really fun story, and Anne Heche did a phenomenal job reading it. You think that, it wouldn't be that hard to just read a book, but it turns out reading it's not that hard, but reading it in a way that's really good is not that easy. Anne Heche nailed it in this case. So if you are at all curious about that, I recommend checking it out. It's probably available everywhere. Personally, I have it on cassette tape. That's right. I have it on cassette tape. I bought it on clearance at a bookstore many years ago, in the 90s probably. I don't know. Anyways, Anne Heche had a great career. And if this was a pop culture show, you could easily do an episode about her life and career in general. But it's not, so this one's about her death. But just in general, she had a lot of hardships she had to deal with. She had a lot of ups and downs, and her life was ultimately tragic, ended in tragedy amongst all of her struggles. All right, so let's get to her death. On August 5th, 2022, she was in a terrible car accident. Technically 3 car accidents, but there was one of them that actually injured her badly enough to kill her. The first was that she ran into a garage doing only minor damage. She drove on, she hit a Jaguar, did not stop, and continued driving at a high speed through a neighborhood. It's hard to tell exactly how fast it is based on the video, but it looks way faster than you should be driving in a neighborhood. We'll talk more about the video later. There was also an incident where she was driving and there was a pedestrian that people say she almost hit. I guess she did. He was like 3 feet from the car. And come on, let's be real. In Los Angeles, that's really not almost hitting somebody. The traffic there is absolutely bananas. So the house she the house she crashed into caught fire. There are 2 separate doorbell videos I was able to find that show her car driving by, and then you hear the sound of a crash in one of them. As the car goes by, you can hear the tires screeching. Again, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that later. The house she crashed into caught on fire. Her car was wedged 30 feet into the house, so she must have hit it going pretty fast. Because the car was wedged into the house, she was also stuck in the car as the house burned around her. There was also somebody in the house. The resident of the house was in the back of the house and luckily was not injured, and their pets also were not injured, or maybe minor injuries. Unfortunately, they lost their house and everything in it from the fire, but they made it out alive, luckily. So the house burned around Anne while she was in her car, and it must have been hell in that car. It took 45 minutes for firefighters to get her out of the car. Depending on the news source, it's 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on who you ask. Either way, she was in there while the house was burning around her for a very long time, much longer than she should have been. The firefighters at first did not know that anybody was even in the car because there was too much smoke and flame. They thought that it was just empty and whoever was driving it had already gotten out. But that wasn't the case. It took the firefighters just over an hour, to put the fire out after they arrived on scene. And after baking in the car for that long, somehow, miraculously, Anne was still alive. She was removed from the smoldering vehicle, suffering from severe burns and probably smoke inhalation. There's a video of her being brought out of the house on a stretcher, and she looks, well, we'll talk about the body bag later, but she's on the stretcher, and then when she gets to the ambulance, she sits up and starts struggling a little bit, and then they put her in the ambulance. It looks like it was shot from a helicopter, and there's not much detail. It's really hard to see if she has any injuries. Somebody zoomed in. At first, people said, look, she looks naked, but somebody zoomed in, and it turns out she's wearing a pink top, like a pink blouse or tank top that she was wearing earlier in the day. And that, from a distance with the poor quality video, it kind of just blends in with her skin color, and it looks like she's naked, but she's not. She's wearing a shirt, apparently. That may be an important detail later on, but we'll get to that in a bit. There were rumors that she was impaired during the crash. There's a picture of her in her car apparently just before the crash. I was unable to find the source of that picture, where it came from, or when it was taken, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But in that picture, there is what looks like a bottle of liquor in her center console. It looks kind of like, I forget what brand of vodka it is, but there's a brand of vodka, I think it starts with an S or something, like one of these Russian sounding brands, and it has like a clear bottle with like a red cap, like a red aluminum cap or whatever that you twist off. It looked like one of those, but again, there's not a whole lot of detail in the picture, so it could have been anything. It looks similar to a liquor bottle, but we don't know for sure 100% that it was, and we don't know 100% where this picture came from. I was unable to verify it. But there is the possibility that she was intoxicated during the crash. We don't know. However, blood tests after the fact showed metabolites for cocaine and possibly a couple of other things, but the levels were not enough for her to be intoxicated. There was also fentanyl found in her bloodstream. At first, people thought that that was what caused it, but it turns out that the hospital had given her that fentanyl as a painkiller. So according to what was found in her blood test, she was not under the influence at the time of the crash. After she was taken from the scene, she was moved to the UCLA Medical Center for treatment, and then the burn center at West Hills Hospital. She was reported to be in critical condition, and some news outlets at first reported that she was expected to survive, but it turns out she was in really rough shape and she required a ventilator to remain alive. By August 11th, it was announced that she had suffered severe lack of oxygen to her brain, or what's known as anoxic brain injury, and she was basically brain dead. Since she was an organ donor, they kept her on life support for a few days to find organ recipients, and on August 14th, she was taken off of life support and she perished. It would be easy to just chalk this one up to mental health issues or drugs. Anne had suffered from mental health issues for a while, for pretty much her whole life, adult life anyways. She'd been abused by her father as a child, and she had also been addicted to drugs off and on. So it would be easy to chalk it up to just drug addiction or mental health problems. For instance, there had been an incident where she had driven her car to the middle of nowhere, gotten out of the car wearing only, pants and a bra, no shirt, walked over a mile in sweltering temperatures to some random lady's house and asked for a glass of water. The lady let her in and gave her some water and recognized her and said, "Oh, you're Anne Heche," recognized her from a TV show. And Anne asked to hang out and watch a movie. There's a lot more to that story, but that's the basic idea. I mean, that's like not normal behavior. Anne was apparently having a mental episode at the time. I'm not sure exactly what was going on. So there is a history there of her acting erratically. Now, all of that said, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? All of that aside, there were some very unusual things about her death. The first thing that really grabs my attention are the screeching tires. This is available. You can look up these videos for yourself. There's 2 different videos. Both of them are online. Some suspect that the screeching tires suggest that her car was rigged and driving at full speed and she had no control over the throttle. The idea would be that the computer on the car would be hacked to tell the car to accelerate, and she was unable to stop the vehicle. In the videos, she doesn't appear to be swerving or turning or whatever. She's going in a straight line. And you can hear the squealing sound of the tires well before the car appears on camera. I mean, like, there's one of the videos, there's like a minute, like a full minute before her car shows up, and you can hear the squealing tires in the distance the whole time, which is extremely strange. So that sounds like the car is accelerating and she's trying to slam on the brakes and she cannot stop the car. So that's for me the most powerful piece of evidence that suggests that her car might have been rigged. Another strange thing is that if she was brain dead, how did she sit up and struggle or appear to struggle with what was going on when she was in the stretcher? And if she was brain dead, why was she even taken to a burn unit in the first place? If she was brain dead, why was she given fentanyl or painkillers? These are not as important as the screeching tires because some of these or all of these questions can be answered by just standard operating procedures. If somebody comes in and they're that burned, They try to resuscitate them or they try to treat them in the ER, and then they send them immediately to the burn unit. They don't wait to find out what the situation is to figure out if they need to treat them. So I guess you could excuse that. If somebody has severe burns like that, they're going to give them painkiller right away. They're not going to wait around to see how bad they're suffering, because they're clearly going to be suffering. And I've also read some people online said that, I'm an EMT, and this happens all the time with people who are unconscious or whatever. Sometimes they'll sit up and they'll struggle. They can do this while they're unconscious or whatever. So her sitting up, supposedly that is possible while you're brain dead. I am not a doctor. I don't know one way or the other about this. I'm not an expert. I am just pointing out some of the things about the case that seem to be strange and seem to not line up. But this particular group of things could be explained by standard operating procedures and just how the body works, even if the brain is not functioning. One thing that people pointed out is there was a store owner or a shop. Anne went to that shop 20 minutes before the crash happened and bought a wig. It was like a Crayola red colored wig or something. And the owner said that they had a conversation for like 10 minutes or something. Anne was not acting weird. She was not acting impaired. She was not acting like she was under the influence. She was acting completely normal. She stopped in, bought a wig. I suppose that's what celebrities do. Hey, if I had more money than I knew what to do with, I'd probably go buy strange wigs as well, right? Why not? And maybe you might want to disguise, because, man, can you imagine? Like, I don't think I'd actually, like, the idea of being a celebrity is really cool, but, we just went grocery shopping at Costco earlier, just from like some staples. Can you imagine you wouldn't even be able to go grocery shopping in public without people bothering you constantly? At first, it's probably going to be really cool. Like, yes, I am awesome. I am really cool. Yes, I will bask in the glory of what is me. But after, a few weeks or whatever, you're going to I just want to go to the grocery store in my sweatpants and buy a pack of eggs so I can make myself an egg burrito. Like, you have a total lack of privacy. You can't do anything without people taking pictures and getting all up in your business and stuff. Like, I don't know, you see in the groceries, go in the grocery store checkout lane, you see those tabloids posting pictures of celebrities without makeup on. And I don't know, I feel like, dude, just leave them alone. Maybe they're hungover and they want to go get a Red Bull at the store or something, like, holy crap, man, I wouldn't want to be a celebrity. Not for me. Definitely not for me. But not that I am in danger of becoming famous or anything. Not at all. Anyways, so she went to the wig store, had a conversation with the shop owner, and was totally normal. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Probably not. There are people who can take a significant amount of drugs and still appear to be normal. Maybe she drank half a bottle half a bottle of vodka just before she went into the wig store, and it hadn't fully kicked in yet, so she didn't act weird until she left. Who knows? Anything's possible. Again, that particular piece of evidence isn't necessarily proof of anything. Even if somebody's having, a mental health issue, they can appear to be normal to a casual observer or a store owner who's selling a wig, so that's not necessarily proof. It's just a little piece of evidence or whatever that people cite as foul play being involved. Because if she was acting normal, she was not drunk or on drugs, then that puts a little bit more weight behind her car being somehow tampered with. Now, one thing that a lot of people talk about is that in the video where she sits up, she doesn't appear badly burned. Her hair looks normal. Again, like I said, the video is grainy and there's not a lot of detail. But if she was on fire or she suffered severe burns, you would expect her clothing and her hair to also be affected. Somebody online posted that hair melts at a low temperature, so if it was hot enough to burn her skin, it certainly would have been hot enough to burn her hair, and her hair looks normal in the video. I don't know. So what this would suggest is that she didn't die in the crash. She was fine, but injured. and she was later killed somewhere when she was in the hospital. Is that true? I don't know. There's no evidence for this. This is just speculation. Like I said, she was wearing a pink top, and you could see her pant legs sticking out at the beginning of the video, and her hair looks normal. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this one. She does not appear to have any burns on her. However, the video is low quality. On the other hand, she was in a burning house. She was in a house fire for half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on who you ask. So this is a weird one, right? I don't know what to think about this one. Could just be the crappy video. It could be she was stuck in the car and the car shielded her from the direct effects of the flame, but it still got hot enough in the car to burn parts of her body. One report said that she got burns on 12% of her body, which would be much lower than what you would expect for somebody being in a fire for 30 minutes. There's all sorts of information on this one. I don't know what to believe. I'm not going to really have an opinion on this particular piece of information one way or another, but I am throwing it out there to, let everybody decide for themselves. Maybe you want to see the video for yourselves. I actually was really reluctant to watch this video because even though I talk about disgusting things or horrific things on this show, I really do not enjoy seeing the photos or the videos of this stuff. I just don't enjoy it at all. I don't have, some sort of morbid curiosity or whatever. I don't like looking at them. They're horrible to see. But the video, I figured, all right, well, I kind of have to watch it so that I can form my own opinion on it instead of just whatever somebody else online says. The video's not that bad. You can't see any details. You can't even tell, unless you zoom in, you can't even tell whether or not she's naked. So you see a stretcher, she's covered in the stretcher, and then she sits up right before she goes in to the ambulance, and that's it. So if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. It's really not that bad. It's not that horrific. So I wouldn't be worried about watching it. But that leads me to my next point, though, the body bag. Some people were reporting that it was unusual that she was covered, or what some people said, she was in a body bag while she was still alive. And people cite that as evidence of foul play, because if she was still alive, why would she be in a body bag? But from what I could find, it's not a body bag. It's a special blanket or two blankets that they use for burn victims. If somebody's burned, that exposed skin becomes infected very easily and it can be injured very easily. So they will cover the person with what was described was basically two pieces of like special paper blankets with like Velcro on it to keep it sealed or to keep it on the person. And then they'll leave a spot for the person's head to stick out or their mouth or whatever so they can still breathe. And then that would explain when she sat up why she came out of what looks like a body bag at first. So it appears that it was not a body bag, so we can debunk this particular point of evidence. Another theory that somebody pointed out that was really interesting was that she was taken, the ambulance she was taken to was vehicle number 63 or 36666, Mark of the Beast. And that ties into a whole sub theory that her death was actually some sort of demonic sacrifice or, by devil worshippers or something like that. Don't have time to cover that. I think it's just a coincidence. There's no other evidence that I've seen for that other than just the numbers 63. If it was really 666, wouldn't it be 36 or would that be too obvious? I don't know. Or maybe just 66 with another 6 taped on there or something. Who knows? So those are a couple of the theories. There is more to this case, but I think I want to save this one for a full case file somewhere down the road because this is one of the ones where I remember it happening and I remembered reading about it, people discussing it and discussing the strange things about the case, but there's a lot to dig into here as far as like the background, what she was doing at the time and different pieces of evidence. So I want to do a deep dive on this one. who knows? After I dig deeper, maybe I'll find that it wasn't anything strange. Her car was not tampered with, and it was just an accident after all. But still, so a possible motive is that she was supposedly making a video, book, or some kind of project about sexual abuse in Hollywood. And if you think it's far-fetched that she would be killed because of something like that, check this out. Ronan Farrow reported in the New Yorker in November 2017 that Harvey Weinstein had hired British-Israeli private intelligence firm Black Cube. I don't have time to cover them right now, but they're exactly what they sound like. It's basically the CIA, but rich people can hire them instead of the government sort of being in charge, kind of. Anyways, Harvey Weinstein hired the intelligence firm Black Cube in order to stop the publication of the abuse allegations against him. Using false identities, private investigators from Black Cube reportedly tracked and met journalists and actresses, in particular Rose McGowan, who was a prominent witness, if you remember, who accused Weinstein of rape. Weinstein reportedly had Black Cube, Kroll, and other agencies target or collect information on dozens of individuals and compile psychological profiles that sometimes focused on their personal or sexual histories. This is an excerpt from Wikipedia, by the way, so you can find this yourself pretty easily. It's part of a much larger article. Weinstein reportedly sought help from Farrow's father, Woody Allen, to help stop Farrow from reporting on the claims of sexual abuse against Weinstein. Allen declined to help. Weinstein also reportedly used Black Cube to attempt to silence journalists Megan Twohey, Twohey, and Jodi Cantor reporting on the allegations against him. According to Cantor, a Black Cube agent posing as a women's rights advocate attempted to manipulate and dupe her. Weinstein approached Hillary Clinton in an attempt to help him stop Farrow from publishing the sexual misconduct allegations against him. Clinton publicist Nick Merrill emailed Farrow unsuccessfully attempted to convince him to not publish the story. So, what? Hold on, there's a little bit more here. According to Rose McGowan, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife, aided Weinstein lawyer David Boies, Boies, in attempting to bribe McGowan and keep her silent about her allegations against Weinstein. What? This is crazy. Did you think today that you were going to hear about a far-reaching conspiracy involving Harvey Weinstein, a private intelligence firm like the CIA, but you can hire them if you're rich, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom, and Woody Allen? This is fucking crazy. Like, we could do a deep dive into this stuff. The only reason I haven't looked into this stuff further is because I find it pretty depressing and frustrating to read about things like the Harvey Weinstein or Epstein, because like that doesn't matter what you uncover. These people generally don't really ever pay for their crimes. And if they do pay for their crimes, they just get a slap on the wrist. Like, look at Epstein, his penalty, he got thrown in jail, quote unquote, but he also was allowed to hire his own security to watch over him. I mean, police officers. And he was on a work release where he got to leave jail and go do whatever he wanted, So that's not really a penalty considering all of the shenanigans he got up to. Meanwhile, I just read in the news pretty recently, there was somebody in Santa Rosa where I live who raped one woman and got, I think it was consecutive 7-year and then 30-year sentences. So 37 years to life, I think it was. Something like that. 30 or 40 years for raping one woman. Epstein, who not only raped the crap out of a lot of children and facilitated that for other people, got basically no penalty whatsoever, relatively speaking. How does any of this make sense? Now, I'm not saying that the guy in Santa Rosa shouldn't have gotten a penalty. By all means, throw the book at him. But my point being is that if you're rich enough, you can get away with damn near anything. By the way, prominent Epstein victim, Virginia, what is her last name? Guerfi or whatever. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce that. But that victim, unfortunately, has passed away, which under mysterious circumstances, which appear that she didn't really commit suicide. It appears to be foul play, but I haven't done a deep dive on that one. And nor do I want to because it's depressing. She's releasing a book. I think it's coming out today, the day I'm recording this. I'm not sure. It might be coming out later. I don't know. But anyway, either way, she's got a book coming out with some pretty serious allegations. Prince Andrew just resigned from his royal position a couple days ago. That is probably not a coincidence. And there's accusations against a former Israeli prime minister. There's all sorts of stuff coming out. We'll see what the fallout is. It looks like some pretty nasty stories are going to be told. Anyways, a little bit of a diversion there. The whole reason I don't like looking into this stuff, as I was saying, is because these people are rich and powerful. They're never going to pay for their crimes, and it's just very frustrating, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. You know? But that said, this is absolutely wild. Harvey Weinstein hired a private intelligence firm to investigate and manipulate witnesses against him and try to kill a story. So that's not necessarily that doesn't have anything to do with Anne Heche. The point is it establishes that people in Hollywood, the very powerful elite in Hollywood, are willing to do some pretty nefarious things to try and hide their crimes. So if Anne Heche was about to uncover certain things that go on, I think it's possible that she could have been targeted. It's circumstantial. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's still pretty interesting how, I mean, look at this. I guess it's like this little club of like rich people. How is all this connected, right? Weinstein, Woody Allen, Hillary Clinton tried to help Weinstein, her campaign. Gavin Newsom's wife tried to help Weinstein. Like, we'll move on from this, but it's just, when I read that, it just blew my tiny little mind that all those people were involved with Weinstein trying to help him cover stuff up. And Woody Allen, who has some, we'll say, controversial relationships, we'll just leave it at that, he declined to help, which is interesting. So that's the short version. I don't know what to think. There's some strange things that can be explained. A lot of it seems circumstantial and probably doesn't add up to a whole lot. But the one thing that keeps me leaning towards the side of this being a murder is the screeching of the car tires. That seems very unusual. Again, go look up that video for yourself. Wow, this is just Anne Heche is taking longer than I thought it would. So yeah, that's why I looked into all of these strange deaths. The ones I think I have 3 or 4 on here. I have 4. One of them I might have to do in the after hours, but I thought, I'll just cover them real quick in 10 minutes. I was like, dude, I don't think I can cover any of these in 10 minutes. So I'll have to do, instead of doing strange deaths and hypnosis murders, I have to focus on just one. There's too much here. All right, next up, Michael Hastings. There is a certain similarity to Anne Heche in that it appears his car was tampered with. Witnesses saw him screeching by in his car, going at full speed, banging on the window as if he needed help. I had trouble verifying that particular description. I couldn't find the original source quote, but I saw it quoted online. So that particular piece of it may be hearsay. I don't know for sure, but let's get into the case. So Michael Hastings was born in 1980 and passed away in 2013. He was a journalist, author, worked for the Rolling Stone, BuzzFeed, Newsweek, and others. He covered the Iraq War, and unfortunately his fiancée was killed in an ambush on a convoy during the Iraq War. One of his claims to fame was that in 2010 he published The Runaway General in the Rolling Stone about General Stanley McChrystal, who at the time was the commander of NATO's International Security Assistance Force in the Afghanistan War. The article made the general and the White House look really bad. McChrystal publicly apologized after it was published. Duncan Boothby, who was a civilian contractor, resigned from his job, and President Obama relieved McChrystal of command. So this was extremely embarrassing for the United States government at the time. Remember the episode I did on Nixon and Watergate? Was that a bonus episode? It might have been a bonus episode. I'm not sure. But anyways, remember he had plans to murder a journalist that had embarrassed him in the past. And the only reason he didn't follow through with that plan, he had it set up and ready to go. The only reason he didn't follow through was because he got busted from Watergate. So he got kicked out of office before he could actually get revenge on that journalist. But the point there is that when it comes to these things, they don't kill people before they publish things all the time. Sometimes they might kill somebody in revenge for something they published that was embarrassing in the past, which makes it problematic to identify the culprit in this case, if there was indeed foul play. We'll get to that in a minute. But, Michael Hastings published a lot of stuff that made a lot of people look bad. So there's any number of people that wanted him silenced because he was causing a lot of trouble for people in government. So anyways, he published that article, and the Pentagon said basically, nuh-uh, and started their own investigation. Again, this would be good. This is like really interesting stuff, and it'd be good for a regular episode, so it's on the list, but we have to skip the details so I can get to more mysterious deaths. We'll just do a summary of this one. But trust me, the details in this case are pretty interesting, and The Runaway General is probably worth a read if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So anyways, the Pentagon did their own investigation. They claimed that the article was mostly incorrect, but the general was fired anyways. In 2012, Hastings released a book titled The Operators that was also about General Stanley McChrystal. He included conversations he had with the general and the general's staff in the book. In one incident, he was at a party where everybody was, quote, totally shit-faced, and one of the people there he was talking to asked him, "You're not going to fuck us, are you?" Dude, I mean, if you're hanging out with a journalist and you aren't aware of their previous work, you should probably look into their previous publications before opening your mouth, because there's a reasonable chance that the journalist is going to throw you under the bus, because that is what they do. Michael Hastings was an investigative journalist, and those are the people you don't want to talk to if you're up to shenanigans. Anyways, another person at the party told Hastings, quote, "We'll hunt you down and kill you if we don't like what you write." We will hunt you down and kill you if we don't like what you write. Apparently, Hastings at the time thought the comment was a joke. In February 2012, Hastings worked with WikiLeaks and the Rolling Stone to report that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security was spying on participants of the Occupy Wall Street movement, which is kind of weird. They were protesting a lot of different things, but they weren't, trying to overthrow the government or anything. Maybe that's just standard operating procedures. I don't know. In May of 2013, Hastings denounced Obama's use of drones. He called it embracing Bush's neoconservatism and, quote, total militarism. He said Obama, quote, enshrines killing people and spying on journalists as the two major tenets of his national security state. And again, I don't want to get political, but sometimes you do a topic where it's unavoidable to at least touch on it. I'm not giving my own opinion. I'm just relaying what these people were saying and what happened. On June 18th, 2013, Hastings died in a single vehicle accident at 4:25 a.m. in the Hancock Park neighborhood of Los Angeles. And, where's Agent ETA when you need him? Also, Hancock is it's a pretty fun movie with Will Smith. It's not perfect, not my favorite, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Also, a strange name for a movie, just Hancock, just think it's going to be, at least R-rated, possibly higher, but no, it's just a superhero movie. Surprise, surprise. Anyways, I've only covered a small part of his career, but suffice to say that he wasn't just one of these talking heads on a news channel, Michael Hastings. He was like a real, actual investigative journalist. We know that he had lots of enemies in government. He had lots of enemies probably elsewhere as well. Had he survived, he would have continued to cover the types of things that he was covering, and he would have continued to embarrass whoever was in office at the time. I don't get the impression, the little bit I looked, I did not get the impression that he had a political agenda. I got the impression that he was an investigative journalist. Big difference there. Anyways, a witness to his crash said that Hastings' car was traveling at maximum speed and was making sparks and flames before it fishtailed and crashed into a tree. Now, I'm trying to imagine why a car might be giving off sparks and flames before it crashes. That seems kind of weird. He was driving a fairly new Mercedes. It wasn't like an old jalopy from like the 1960s where you could say, okay, that would make sense if it caught on fire. No, he was driving a new car that, say what you want about Mercedes being mechanically unreliable. I'm not aware of them spontaneously catching on fire and giving off sparks. So that is really weird. A security camera captured his car speeding along and bursting into flame. I was unable to find that video. The YouTube link that somebody posted is no longer there. The video has been deleted. That's not suspicious at all. Am I right? It's possible if I dig through archive.com or something, I might be able to find the video, but for the little time I had for this episode, I was not able to find it. But we do have it on camera somewhere, probably. I don't know. When he crashed, the car's engine was ejected about 50 meters or 50 to 60 yards from the crash. That's kind of weird. Engines don't typically do that, but who knows? Hastings' body was burned beyond recognition. It apparently took them 2 days to identify the body, and they did so using his fingerprints. He had traces of THC and methamphetamines in his system, but according to the coroner's report, there was not enough in his system for him to be intoxicated. Although it was ruled an accident, no signs of foul play were found. Hastings' brother had been staying with him. He said that he was worried that Hastings was experiencing a manic episode. So it's never just black and white. There's usually some gray area, right? It's possible that he was experiencing a manic episode and he decided to go driving crazy. It is possible people who experience manic episodes, from what I understand, can feel like they're invincible or like that there's no way that anything bad can happen to them, so they might drive recklessly. I'm not sure. Ask a psychologist about that, but that is one possibility. And, I don't like to cherry pick information to try and make a case seem stranger than it is. I think it's important to sort of put everything out there so that we can get a good evaluation of any particular case. So his brother was staying with him at the time. He was sleeping in Hastings' apartment when Hastings left in the morning and got in the car crash. Of course, if that was it, if that was all there was to the case, I probably wouldn't be talking about it. But there are some more strange details to the case. After his accident, people immediately started asking questions because it didn't really make a whole lot of sense the way things unfolded. Richard Clark, who is a former national coordinator for security, infrastructure protection, and counterterrorism, said that the crash was, quote, consistent with a car cyber attack. There is reason to believe that the intelligence agencies for major powers, including the USA, know how to remotely seize control of a car. So if there were a cyber attack on Hastings' car, and I'm not saying there was, I think whoever did it would probably get away with it. Yeah, because it would be damn near impossible to prove that that had happened, that his car had been hacked. It would be nearly impossible. Also, another quote from Richard Clark, it's relatively easy to hack your way into the control system of a car and to do such things as cause acceleration when the driver doesn't want acceleration, to throw on the brakes when the driver doesn't want the brakes on, to launch an airbag. You can do some really highly destructive things now through hacking a car, and it's not that hard. I've heard that before, that the security systems on cars are not that robust, and these days, pretty much everybody's car, I mean, even some cars going all the way back to the 90s, are controlled by computers, and to one degree or another, you could tell that computer to just keep accelerating. It's, long gone are the days where everything is controlled by a physical cable. A lot of stuff these days is controlled by what you would call fly-by-wire. Not necessarily everything, but it's a lot more common than it used to be. So even the steering wheel might not have a direct control mechanism. So if you hacked the computer, you might be able to even disable the steering wheel and tell the car to crash. Is that the case in his particular Mercedes model? I don't know. I didn't look that deeply into it, but I certainly would if I did a whole case file. All right, so the day before he died, Hastings sent an email to colleagues saying the FBI was investigating him and that he needed to go off the radar because he was onto a big story. He had also contacted a WikiLeaks lawyer just hours before the crash. Just before he left, Hastings asked his neighbor if he could borrow her Volvo just after midnight. He said he was afraid to drive his own car. He felt that it had been tampered with. The neighbor declined. He drove his car and he perished. So, I mean, that's not weird, right? He feels like his car has been somehow compromised, and he gets in and drives it anyways and crashes and dies. What? That is extremely strange. What's even stranger to me is if he felt there was a chance his car had been compromised, why was he driving it somewhere? Where was he going that was so important to risk his life to get to? There are speculations that somebody called him and we don't know who it was. So it appears that he received a phone call just before he left. Nobody knows who that call came from. But maybe he was in a hurry to get somewhere for something important. We don't know. The FBI claimed that it had not been investigating Hastings because Hastings, before his death, said that they had been. However, on September 24th, 2013, the FBI was forced to release its file on Hastings through the Freedom of Information Act. It's pretty rare, from what I understand, for the FBI to have a file on a journalist, but maybe it's not. Who knows? I mean, if they are doing these things, they're doing them secretly, so we would not know how common it is. But as far as I know, it seems pretty rare. And that's also interesting that the FBI lied about it. Weird. So Hastings was supposedly investigating the CIA director John Brennan just before his death. Here's a quote from an article on mintpressnews.com. I'm not familiar with them. I don't know how reliable of an outlet they are, but the article did seem to at least be partially factual. Here's an excerpt from that article. Several details regarding the crash itself also suggested the possibility that Hastings' death was the result of foul play, despite official statements to the contrary. For instance, the car caused no damage to the median curb dividing the 4-lane road where the crash occurred, nor were there any skid marks present, despite the fact that the car made a sudden 60-degree turn into a palm tree. So 60 degrees would be a fairly sharp turn. At high speed, that means he probably turned the wheel all the way to the left. Why would you do that if you're traveling at a high speed? It doesn't make any sense. Now, the detail about the curb not being damaged, I'm not sure what the significance of that is. If you look at the type of car he was driving, maybe the curb was pretty low. A normal height curb appears that it would be struck by the car. I'm not sure what to make of that. Continuing on with the article, in addition, an eyewitness at the scene, a worker at a business located near the site of the crash, told San Diego News 6 that the car was traveling extremely fast and that explosions could be heard coming from within the vehicle shortly before the crash. Oh, that's why it was on fire. That's why there were sparks, because it blew up. Right. Why didn't I think of that? Furthermore, police pointed out that the fire inside the car was unusual due to its intensity, commenting that it resembled a thermite burn. Hastings's body was so badly burned that it took the coroner 2 days to identify him, another factor that is atypical for vehicle fires. The LAPD also refused to release the accident or toxicology reports, nor did they allow Hastings's car to be independently inspected, despite their assertion that there was no evidence of foul play. Now, at the time of Hastings's death, this was all just sort of speculation. Probably the government had access to hack somebody's car. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We don't really know. However, when WikiLeaks released Vault 7, we suddenly got another piece of the puzzle. Vault 7 had, among other things, information on the CIA's worldwide hacking program. When the WikiLeaks released things, sometimes they would refer to it as a vault. So Vault 5, 6, 7, whatever, all dealt with different things or had different groups of things in there that were released. From the press release that Wikipedia gave out when Vault 7 came out, as of October 2014, the CIA was also looking at infecting the vehicle control systems used by modern cars and trucks. The purpose of such control is not specified, but it would permit the CIA to engage in nearly undetectable assassinations. Nearly undetectable assassinations. Yeah. If somebody hijacked your car, it would be extremely easy to make the accident look accidental. So there is evidence also that the CIA had this ability well before 2014, going back even as far as the 1990s. And even in the 90s, some cars had computers controlling certain aspects of your vehicle. It was not as prevalent or extensive as it is today, but even back then, and especially back then, I feel like the security measures in place would not have been as robust as they are these days, so hacking a car might have been even easier in the 90s. There are other cases similar to Hastings and Anne Heche that seem like the car may have been controlled, involving things like single car accident, crashing into something with no evidence of skid marks or other attempt to slow down the vehicle. In Haish's case, there may have been that attempt. I'm not sure if people checked for skid marks, but it definitely sounds like she was slamming on her brakes. Anyways, the cases are Richard Waddington, Jorg Hader, and even Princess Diana. Those cases have some similarities. They ran into objects without having any skid marks. Of course, this is all just circumstantial. It doesn't prove anything. And that's why this is such a powerful weapon for whoever can access it, because you can kill somebody without drawing any suspicion to yourself whatsoever. So Hastings was worried his car was tampered with to kill him. He asks his neighbor to borrow hers. She declines. He dies in a fire hot enough to destroy any evidence he's carrying that looks like it might have been a fire started by some kind of thermite charge or bomb. Somebody saw his car giving off flames and sparks before it crashed. Somehow his engine was mysteriously not connected to the rest of the car and went flying. Maybe that's normal, I don't know, but seems unusual to me. I'm not aware of too many crashes where that's the case. The FBI lied about keeping tabs on him. He was investigating the CIA, who had motive and means to cause the car crash. And he had made enemies at the highest level of government multiple times. So we have modem. Oh, I can't talk. We had motive, we have means or ability, and we have somebody who died under mysterious circumstances. That's the short version. There's enough here to do a full case file. It's on the list. And it's a lot of very suspicious stuff going on here. If Harvey Weinstein can hire a private intelligence agency to tamper with witnesses and try to manipulate events, then who knows what's possible? Probably anybody with enough money could hire this private agency to do stuff on your behalf, whether that's killing somebody who's reporting on something you don't like or trying to tamper with witnesses or whatever. All of this seems to tie in together. I guess I should have called this one, the CIA can control your car or something like that rather than strange deaths, right? Do a clickbait title, right? The CIA can do this one thing to kill you or whatever. You got to do one of those titles. All right, so that's the short version of that, but it's still really weird. The last case I wanted to talk about today is Danny Casolaro, who was alive from 1947 to 1991. He was working on a story called The Octopus, which was some sort of international cabal. He was found in the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg, West Virginia, with his wrists slashed 10 to 12 times, and of course it was ruled a suicide. I suppose that's possible. It's probably not unheard of for somebody committing suicide to slash their wrists 10 to 12 times. It just seems a little weird. So octopus, what is it? What does it do? In early 1990, Casolaro was investigating the Inslaw case after being informed about it from his IT contacts. This particular case centered on a small software company whose owner accused the U.S. Justice Department of stealing their computer program, PROMIS, PROMIS, Prosecutors Management Information System. And I promise you, right? I promise you that this case is wild. We don't have time to go into it now, but there will be some things touched upon that are very surprising if I ever do a deep dive into this particular one. It is a wild ride. Anyways, Casolaro believed that this case was just one tentacle of a much larger interconnected global conspiracy involving an international cabal of rogue government officials and others. And of course, this is why he called it The Octopus. Has anybody seen that movie by James Bond? Not by James Bond. Excuse me. I'm losing my mind here, apparently. The James Bond movie Octopussy. Octopussy. They're just a couple of those movies. They're just really on the nose with what they're, what's that one What's that one love interest he has? What's her name? Like some straight up like Miss Vagina or Pussy Galore. Pussy Galore, that's it. It's like, come on, man. That's not even a real name. Oh, geez. Anyways, uh, his investigation that he was doing apparently touched on other scandals and theories, such as the Iran-Contra affair, the October surprise allegations for the elections involving Ronald Reagan, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International incident, and the CIA cooperation with Central American drug cartels. I told you, man, this one gets wild. Any and all of those entities or people would be interested in silencing him, you know. And by the way I think it works is that a president doesn't necessarily, or even a head of a corporation or somebody in charge, doesn't necessarily call the murder or command somebody's death. I think they have people in the administration to handle things for them. Because if you imagine all the complex things a president has to deal with, there's no time in their day to deal with something like a journalist or whatever. It's just below their radar. It's beneath their ability or their time to deal with. So I believe it's more likely somebody in the administration notices something going on and they order something to be done without even the president knowing about it. And that would give the leader plausible deniability. And then if they get busted somewhere down the road, the president should just give pardons to let them off the hook. So it's sort of like a perfect crime, right? It's kind of like how the mafia works. Anyways, I think that's kind of how it happens. You know, they'll say, okay, this is a problem. And they'll say to a certain underling, go deal with the problem. They don't even necessarily mean go kill them. They just say, go take care of this, make the problem go away, buy them off, pay them to sign a non-disclosure agreement or whatever. So that's the kind of stuff he was covering. And that definitely would be a motivating factor, you know, so we have people who have the motive to kill him. In August 1991, Casolaro traveled to Martinsburg, West Virginia to meet a source he believed would provide a major breakthrough in his investigations. On October 10th, 1991, on August 10th, 1991, Casolaro was found dead in his hotel room at the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg with his wrists slashed multiple times. Local authorities and the medical examiner ruled the death a suicide. However, Casolaro's family and friends found the suicide ruling implausible, particularly because he had warned people, quote, if anything happens to me, don't believe it's an accident. His family didn't believe it, and his family said that he said specifically that he was not going to commit suicide. That is really weird. So his notes, all of his notes disappeared. His tape recorder disappeared. The draft that he had been working on of his book had disappeared. And there were also irregularities with the handling of evidence at the crime scene and irregularities in the autopsy. That's sort of a short, let's see. Yeah, I won't go into detail on any of that stuff because we are a little over time here and I've got other stuffs I got to do so I can get this out and edited for all y'alls. So I'll have to cut it there, but this is easily a full episode there. I mean, this Danny Casolaro one, more than any of the other things I've covered, is easily like a 2 or 3 part episode. It touches on a lot of different stuff. I guess we'll end it here. I'll cover a couple of other minor things in the after hours. If you're interested, check that out. But as far as the regular episode goes, that's all we've got time for you for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Help the show out. Leave us a review, a thumbs up, a subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, keep it strange.